All right, welcome back to my YouTube channel and podcast, Wonders and Miracles, where we get to celebrate miraculous moments in everyday lives. I'm your host, Liza Lawrence, and I'm so happy to have you join me today as we talk with Bob Howard from Utah about his close calls with death. In fact, Bob runs his own podcast, which we'll talk about later, called A Close Call with Death. So go check that out. It's awesome. But we were introduced by a mutual interviewee, Abby Ward. If you remember her from last year, she was the girl who fell off the 70-foot cliff and had a near-death experience and a traumatic brain injury. So Abby, thanks for connecting me and Bob. We've had a great conversation together, and I'm super excited to have Bob on today. Before we jump into this episode, though, if you love miracle stories and want to hear more, hit the like and subscribe button so you can catch all the inspiring and uplifting episodes of real people sharing real miracles. So, Bob, thanks for being here. I'm so excited to have you on the show today.
My pleasure, Liza. Thank you for having me on the show.
So, first question, how many close calls with death have you had in your life?
Great question. So far, I'm up to a dozen. I've had 12 close calls with death. Yeah.
Wow. So give us a quick rundown of them, and then we'd love to hear some of your favorites.
Okay. Well, just off the cuff, I can think of, I hit a Black Angus cow in the middle of the night in Wyoming, resulting in that cow not dying from the accident, but that cow actually walked away and delivered a baby that night within moments after I hit it. I was with my girlfriend out for a drive in the night, and she experienced that too. So lightning, I was struck almost twice in the head by a lightning bolt when I was up in a big bad storm on ski patrol at Park City Mountain Resort. Drowning, I nearly drowned on the Colorado River down by Moab, Utah. And I was in a class 4 or 5 rapid down there and nearly drowned and was saved. Was in Africa, in Kenya, Africa, with my wife, Carrie. And we were chased by a herd of hippos that we got way too close to in going into the dark. And that was horrific. And I've never seen Carrie run so fast. It was crazy. And then a surgery gone bad. I had spinal fusion on my neck, and the surgery just went bad. And a part flew down my trach and to my lung and nearly killed me there. Then we were in Mexico on a crazy dune bug excursion. And we stopped for a little bit at a little tequila factory that Carrie and I don't drink tequila, so we were out in the parking lot after the cool demonstration, and a saw blade from a construction site came off the saw and went right past my right ear, and I ducked and avoided it, and it landed on the ground behind me. A half a circular saw blade nearly took me out, and Carrie saw the whole thing. So I have proof. Last fall, I've had a car accident that was horrific, and I'll talk about that one. It's one of my faves. And struck on my motorcycle after football practice by a lady who turned in front of me and smacked me, and I flew clear over the car and survived that. So there's just a few things. And I thought, man, I am klutzy or accident prone or intended to die and didn't. And God saved me for great reasons. So that's a start.
That is crazy. Hearing all of those, I'm like, wow, what a life. And really, we could call these close calls with divine intervention or miracles as well, right? Like God definitely sounds like had a hand in preserving your life. And so
I agree with you 100%, Liza. I really feel like God had a huge hand in saving my life. And that was my realization from when I was young through my life to now, realize more and more. He definitely had a hand in it. And I wonder what he's saving me for. But it must be cool things so I could be on your show.
Yay. Well, I'm sure there's more to why you've been preserved as well. So, and hopefully we can talk about some of that. So go ahead and tell us some of your favorite stories. We'd love to hear the ones that really impacted you and what you learned from them.
For sure. You know what, we talk about the lightning story, and when I was on ski patrol, I was at the top of the mountain up on McConkey's Lift, and we hear on our radios that there was lightning striking on the mountain. We had a big storm coming in, evacuate the mountain immediately. So we acted as patrollers. We went in from having fun and having a real chill day on the mountain to serious military action. Like, it was protocol to evacuate immediately, and we had our things to do. My job was to take off on a snowmobile, and go down the run and herd the people off the mountain and tell them, lift, mountain closed, evacuate now. And as I was going along on the snowmobile, I had to stand up on it because the windshield was completely packed with snow from the blizzard. I could only see the run from a space of nothingness between two tree lines. And I knew somewhere between the trees was the run, and I could not see the ground or anything. I was standing there driving along, and I hear this buzzing sound in my right ear. And I turned to see this big purple ball forming in the air, just about 3 feet above the snow. And it was just staticky and looked like a basketball on fire. It was crazy. And I looked at it, what in the heck is that? And then all of a sudden it exploded, and it almost blew me off the bill, and it blew out my right eardrum. It bowed the trees. It blew a huge hole in the ground, and it was a lightning strike. As it forms, the sky connected with the ground connects with this huge explosion. Wow. And I was scared. And honestly, I thought, man, I'm going back. I'm the heck with this. Mountain's okay. See you later, and head back in safety. But I thought, I've got to keep going. I have a job to do. So I was going along with one deaf ear. And all of a sudden, I hear this on the left side of me, and it was about maybe 30 feet away. And the same ball formed on the left side, and it exploded, and now I'm dead. Now it blew my left eardrum out. There's just the percussion dead in my ear, and so I couldn't hear anything. And I could just see the storm in front of me, but no sound. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be hit in the head the next time and be gone and blow up my bill and be on fire, and it'd be horrible. And so I kept going and got the people down. I finally got to the bottom, and my team lead, Pete Ballantyne, everybody else on my team had gotten there, and he came up to me and was really happy that I was down. He wants to make sure all the patrollers survive. And I couldn't hear him, and he was talking to me, and I said, I can't hear you. And he goes, what, ears plugged up? And I said, no, lightning. And he bust out laughing. And to this day, we thought, it's so funny, he calls me Lightning. And I honestly thought there's a reason why, I was saved that day. Like, why, if God wanted to take me home, just like that, he could just hit me in the third episode and I'm gone. But he didn't. And so I got to survive that. That was the coolest experience because that's super, super rare. If you go out to the internet, you can look up lightning balls of lightning, and snowstorm lightning. It's really rare.
Wow. And you could actually see the formation of the lightning. Wow.
I could. And honestly, you could just see it happening. And before it really, the explosion happened, and then it's a bright flash and white and super terrifying. And honestly, to this day, whenever there's lightning, there's storm by me, I get really, really nervous. It just brings back this anxiety. And so,
yeah. And do you still have hearing loss from it?
What?
Do you? Yeah, right. I can't hear you anymore.
Yeah, no,
Yes,
no. I did for a while, and I actually have hearing aids, and my wife thinks I should wear them more, but I hate them, so I don't wear them all the time, and I don't have them on today. But I do have some really super cool Bluetooth hearing aids that communicate with my phone and everything. So yeah.
Interesting. So yeah, what did that teach you? That experience? What did you learn as you reflected on? Wow, I wasn't killed that day.
Well, I just felt like their life is so valuable, and that it's so worth living. You have to live every single moment. Even when it gets really scary, you need to keep going, one foot in front of another. I didn't want to go forward that day. I didn't want to do my job for a moment. And I realized, you know what, that's dumb. Those firemen that went into 9/11 building, they charged in and they went into the fire instead of running away. So I thought, I've got to do the same thing. Makes me emotional just because it's such a crazy dilemma in your mind when you think, I want to run from something, but you don't. It gave me a lot of inner strength that day. So
yeah, I think that's such a powerful lesson. And so many of us can relate to that when we don't want to do the hard thing, but we do it anyway. And we do it with God's help. So,
oh my gosh, yes. And honestly, I felt like reassurance that, hey, you know what, you're going to be okay. And then I didn't know really what that meant. But I was okay. You know, at the end of the day, the mission got complete, and I went on to continue to live my life, and I would do it again. You know, if I was in that situation, I would just you know, go into it again. So
that's amazing.
And you know, I would encourage anybody else that, gosh, whether it's not every day that you have lightning facing you, but you have other challenges that you think, you know, am I really going to be able to do this, or can I push through? Can I survive this? You bet. You know, do everything you can to survive it, because there's been so much life since then that I've been able to enjoy. I would be so regretful. There's times when you feel so much pain or discomfort that a person will say, you know what, that's it. I'm done. I really appreciate the opportunity, but I'm done with this. And that's okay. For those of us that, you know, just feel like there's a slight hope that we can continue on doing more things, then take that opportunity and keep going.
Amen. I love that. Okay. Share with us another favorite. You said a car accident was another one that was really impactful.
It was crazy. One time back when I was going to college, I was driving in a Volkswagen Beetle at the time. It got really good gas mileage. You couldn't put a lot of college clothing and stuff in it, but it was a cool car. And I was living in Wyoming, and I was going on a trek from the northern Wyoming to Laramie, Wyoming, and it was 6 hours to go to back to college from a spring break. And I was driving through what's called the Wind River Canyon. It's a canyon area that has very, you know, curvy turns in it, narrow road, and then a guardrail, and then about 100 yards down to a river down below. And I was driving along as fast as I could in my Beetle, and probably 65, 70 miles an hour through this canyon. And I came around a corner, and there was a car way up ahead of me coming my direction. No big deal. But in Wyoming, sometimes you don't see another car for a long time. And on this day, I didn't see any cars until this car. And it was ahead of me coming in my direction. And then all of a sudden, it just came into my lane. It was coming across the center line right at me, like it was playing chicken. And when you're in a canyon road, there is no room to go anywhere. And all I could do was just crank the wheel to the right as hard as I could. But if I were to keep going off to the right, I would have plummeted off 100 yards over an embankment and down to the river and died for sure. When I cranked my wheel to the right, the car hit me in the front left corner of my little Beetle head on. And so it wasn't a direct head on, it was an angle, hit me in the front left corner, and it completely crushed my little car. And my right passenger door opened wide up, and I flew straight out of the car horizontally and landed on the road and stood up. And it completely destroyed my car, and it smashed his big Chrysler car all the way back to the dash. And he was just sitting there, and steam and stuff was going on. And I'm just standing there like, what the heck just happened? It was the craziest thing. All my stuff was all over the road in a Volkswagen, the compartments in the front, the trunks in the front. My suitcase blew apart, and my mom had sent me back with a bunch of apples. They were rolling all over the ground. And this highway patrolman immediately was there. He had seen the whole thing happen. He was back behind me, and he drove up, and he jumped out of his car, had lights on, and he grabs me by my shoulder and just said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I just don't really know what just happened. I just don't." And honestly, in that moment, it's like everything, time stopped, and glass was floating in the air. It was just like on TV where time just kind of stops and slows down. Everything was in slow motion. And when I was taken out of the car and laid on the road, I didn't have any torn clothing, no abrasions, bruises, cuts, broken bone, nothing. And the other guy, the driver of the car, had suffered a broken leg from it. The police officer asked him what happened, and he admitted that he had fallen asleep at the wheel. At that moment, I didn't think about how lucky I was in the moment. It was later when I got back to Laramie, and I reflected a lot on that day and just realized I had to have been saved. I had to have had someone take me out of that car and set me on the ground. And it may sound like crazy to some people, but some people will get it, that, there's times when you do have heavenly intervention, and I didn't see anybody take me out. I didn't have any angelic interaction with anyone, but I know for a fact I was saved that day, and that I was preserved and able to get through that. So it was just crazy. It was one of my coolest episodes.
That is really, really amazing, especially that your door just flew open. Like you didn't hit any glass. You didn't have, like you just were taken out of the car. That's pretty incredible.
And the highway patrolman saw it. And he said that he saw the car, just the explosion, and this thing flew out of the car. And he said, I thought it was a mannequin. And then it stood up and it was you. And he was mind blown. And he said, I've been doing this for over 25 years. I've never seen anything like this and he just was baffled. He kept asking me, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, like that. I just don't know what happened. I said that probably a dozen times, probably a concussion.
That's another miracle, though, too, that this highway patrolman was right there at the right time. If you said these were empty roads that you don't see a lot of cars on, the fact that he was right there in that moment, too, feels divine.
Absolutely. Amen. That's just another one of my favorites.
Well, I think we have time for one more. If you want to share another one, we do have time.
You know what? I'm gonna tell one of I was going down the Colorado River. I went with my son Taylor. We were going with a group of guys, and on like a little guide trip down to Colorado, over by Moab, Utah. And there's a series of rapids there that are absolutely amazing for kayakers. But I borrowed 2 ducky kayaks for my son and I, and they're not what you want to go on in Class 5 rapids at all. They're the blow up kayaks where you sit in them, felt more like we're on top of them. You're not into them and secured. And the guy who I borrowed them from, he didn't really care so much about the duckies, but he said, these paddles, they're expensive. Do not lose this paddle, or you'll pay me big time for them. Don't lose the paddle. Okay, Dave, I'll keep track of the paddle. But I was going with my son. He was 18 at the time. They look at Taylor and I, and they told me, your vest, let's trade out, because what you have on right now is kind of more like a lake going out and having fun fishing thing. This is real serious rapids, and you could die. So this guide changed vests with me and put on this big orange vest that would help me if I went in. And we're going down, and they said, hey, you know what, just whatever you do, keep paddling. Attack the waves hard with your paddles to keep buoyancy and balance, and just hit it hard. And when we get down here, we'll tell you where to go.
Are you an experienced kayaker? Was this sort of a fun new adventure? What was your training level?
Great question.
Skill level.
This is so crazy, Liza, because my son and I had no experience kayaking, none, zero. We had never been out doing this. We didn't really prepare that well. We were like, we'll go kayaking, it'll be fine. We didn't have the right equipment. We didn't have any training. And that day, the guides just said, hey, we're going to surround you with us. And if you get in trouble, there's a couple of things. There's a little bag that has rope in it, and they'll throw it to you, and you get the rope and they'll pull you in. Or if we need to pull you out of the river, then you need to say Big Mac. And when we look at you, you say Big Mac, and then we know you're cognizant enough to pull you out without killing us, because people panic. And if you're in a panic mode, they're reluctant to grab you and help you and try and save your life. And that's it. And they went, okay, let's go. And so we have zero experience. We're going down and we're thinking Big Mac. So as we go through the rapids, we hit the first batch, and I'm so concerned about my son. I just want him to have a good time, but I don't want him to die on this trip or ever. And so we're going along, and he's in front of me. The guides are in front, guides are in back. And then we had one pontoon raft that had our supplies on it that a guy had all by himself, but it was like one of those big things you go on in excursions. So we're going down the river, and we went through a couple of rapids, and I was like, wow, we're doing it. And the guy's looking is like, that's not even bad. Like these are ripples compared to what we're going to go into. So follow our instruction. And then that made my heart just race, thinking, oh my gosh, this is bad. I mean, there were like 3-4 foot waves going through there, and they said it was a ripple. We come up to this one area, and I'll get to the chase. It's called Room of Doom. And it's a bad section of the Colorado River. And that day, with the water level, the rapids were so violent, it went up and over this big rock in the river that created this big hump, and then a swirl eddy in the middle of the river that could have swallowed a bus. It was so big. And they were screaming out at us, stay left, stay left. And I was watching Taylor, and we were going along, and all of a sudden Taylor shot through, and he got to the left, and he was fine. He made it. And then a rogue wave slaps my ducky right on the nose and shoots me right. And I was headed right into the Room of Doom. And I was paddling like crazy, hitting the waves, just paddle. And I went up and over and into this great big eddy and disappeared. It sucked my boat away. And I was in there, and I was holding on to that dang paddle. Well, miracle one was that the guide traded me vests. I would have drowned with that crappy vest I had on, and I had a good vest, so it was helping me. But in that kind of violent water, it's very areas. It's got a lot of bubbles in it, and so you sink like a rock. And I was sinking in this thing, and I'm going around like in a washing machine. It was just sucking me down, and I was drinking in water. But I held on to that paddle. Well, the paddle sticking straight up looked like a flag in that hole, and the guides were able to see me in there. And then that's the only reason that they saw that I was in there. They saw the tip of my paddle. And so this one guy comes out to me. They throw 2 rescue ropes to me, and they both went over and missed me. Both missed, gone. And they only had 2, and we lost them. This guy comes at me, and he rolls, and he comes back up, and he looks at me like, I'm going to abort. Like, he doesn't want to die, but he wants to get me. And I was looking at him as I came around. I looked at him, and I went around. I looked at him, and I was just like in panic mode, like, please help me. And he rolled again, went under, and came back up. And all of a sudden, he flipped his kayak around backwards, and he said, grab the back. And there's a little tiny loop, a little steel thing on the back of the kayak. And I reached out, and I put my finger in it, and I held onto it by that 1 inch of my pointer finger, 1 inch, and I just held onto that, and he paddled like crazy, and he pulled me out of that area. So he was pulling me out into the river, and there's no beach to get out on. It's all rock wall and slimy, and you cannot get out. And I was just continuing to sink and come back up, and I was starting to take in more water. I was inhaling. I was starting to cough, and when I breathe, I'd inhale river water. I was choking, and I thought, this is it. And my wife, we were going to be married the following weekend, and my wife said, hey, whatever you do, just come back to me. And I heard this little come back to me in the back of my mind. I went, oh my gosh, I got to get back to Carrie. So he took me over the edge, and I fell off of him, and he took off, and it was just the river took him away. I'm all by myself, going down and drowning along the river, and reaching out and grabbing the wall and just sliding along, and I'm dying. This guy, one last chance, the guy with the big raft parks it next to the wall, and he says, grab the bar on the bottom of the raft, yells that out to me. I was looking at him, and all of a sudden I thought, I got to yell out Burger King or Big Mac. I couldn't remember what the heck the name was. So I was like, Burger King, Big Mac, whatever. And he goes, good enough. And so as I shot down underneath the raft, I see this bar, and I grabbed it, and he opens a hatch, grabs my vest, and pulls me in. Oh my gosh. And I got in there, and I just looked at him and said, dude, you just seriously just saved my life. And he goes, brah, it's not a big deal. No worries. It's what we do. It's okay. No big deal. He just totally dismissed it. And I said, no, really, I'm on ski patrol. And when I help somebody, I know I'm helping them. You saved my life today. And he goes, it's not a big deal. He just would not take any of the praise. That same dude drowned the next year. He left 3 kids behind. A guy came underneath his raft, missed it. He dove in to go get the guy, and they both drowned. That is how weird it is. So
wow.
crazy, you're just, I just thought, there's several miracles in that one story that just happened, from the guys in the beginning, the guys in the middle, the guy on the end, man, they had a crew to save my life that day. Yeah.
These are incredible stories. Obviously, you're still here. You still have a purpose.
Yeah.
Because your life has been preserved. What do you think that is? And what have you learned from these close calls?
Life is so cool. It is just so amazing. You got to live it. You got to live it big. You just do everything you can to take every moment of opportunity to experience this life in every single way that you can. Abby Ward said it, very well, that she chose this life. She chose to come back. And even when it was going to be hard, she chose that. She'd much rather take life hard than go and have all this relief. We're all going to get relief someday, but we're all supposed to experience even the hardships, because that's life. I just thought, gosh, this is just such a cool life to live. And it made me really feel super grateful and happy every day that I'm here. And I encourage that to everybody around me. Some people do you ever have a bad day? Heck, yes. Are you ever sad? A lot. Are you always happy? Most of the time, just because I love every day I get up. Every day I get to get up and live life and breathe. And, if you get sick, you work to get over the illness. If you get hurt, you try and heal. And then try and help other people get outside yourself. As soon as you stop focusing on your own pain, and you start looking at other people's pain, you help them, and all of a sudden you don't feel so much yourself. You're taking on helping them. What I think is some of the biggest things I get out of this.
Well, I think that's such an important lesson right now with the world the way it is. We can get so bogged down in the worry and the heaviness and all the problems that are happening that we kind of shut down, and we don't take advantage of the coolness of life, the opportunities, the experiences. And they don't have to be big and grand, like going on a river trip. It can be talking to your neighbor next door. It can be being in awe of the sunsets and just engaging with the beauty of life and the adventure of life, which I do think is a powerful message that so many of us forget when we're bogged down in the hardness of it. And the
You know what, Liza, that just makes me think about a good point is that, you just mentioned it, just you're looking around, at the moose and the beauty and the sunrise, sunset, things around you that's so beautiful. The key thing is you're looking around, you're looking for it. Start looking for the things around you that you could admire and take into your life. It makes me think of something happened yesterday. I met a friend at Point of the Mountain to pick up some honey from him. He's a beekeeper. And we were in the parking lot, and I was talking to him, and we're right there at the point of the mountain where all the paragliders are. Well, there was probably 100 in the air yesterday with the breeze. All of a sudden, he was talking to me, and it was almost like one of those squirrel moments. He looks up and he goes, "Oh my gosh, look at that." And he saw like 100 parasailers right above him. And he goes, "How come I never saw that?" And I said, "Because you didn't look up. You didn't look up. You're always looking down. You're looking at the road. You're looking where you're going. Look up once in a while and look at what you see." And there was just so many beautiful floaters up there. It was incredible. So I think we all got to look around more often, every single day. Don't do the same thing. Look in a different direction you usually do. Follow your intuition. You listen to that voice, because there's a reason behind that. There's no coincidence. There's a reason why it happened. So.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Just look around. And that's one of the reasons I started my podcast. And I'd love to hear why you started your podcast, but it was like, help people notice that miracles are happening everywhere. They're going on in everyday lives. And so if we can call attention to it, we start to notice it more and more. And so tell me why you started your podcast, because I know we chatted about this a little bit earlier, but I love why you started A Close Call with Death.
The reason why is because I actually wanted to capture my stories of close calls for encouragement and inspiration for my kids and grandkids. I wanted to make this like little book and capture the stories. As I was typing them out, and starting one story after another, chapter 1, 2, 3, I was inspired to do a podcast. Why? Because I could take the stories that I learned and I could share my stories with people to inspire them to tell their story. I want to hear stories from people that are out there that have a recognition of the miracles and the beauty in this life. And I want them to share them so that other people, because it's contagious and it's good. I was tired of hearing all the downer stuff that we went through when we went through COVID. There was so much sadness around COVID, deaths around COVID. The political landscape was horrid. There was so much fighting and violence in the streets and all this stuff. And I thought, there's got to be something good and better out there. And all of a sudden I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be like good news. You know, I'm going to really talk to people that have these inspiring stories to help other people. And it will be like a spread of light. And other people will think, oh my gosh, that helped me. I didn't have to go through that, but it's helping me go, learn from that. And I didn't even have to go through that experience, blah, blah, blah. And it spreads. And that's why I created the podcast. It for no other reason. It's not to get money or anything. It's to help others. That's it. And just like you, Liza, I know your podcast is to do the exact same thing. I think there are people around here like us that are doing this that are just helping others. There's some freaky reason, whether that's inspiration or guidance from God, that we need to do this to help other people. So I hope so many people continue to listen to your miracle stories, on your show.
Well, thank you. And I agree with you. I feel like, the year I started my podcast, 3 others started miracle podcasts. Well, 2 others. So there were 3 of us. And I thought, okay, that's God talking. Who's going to take this calling? Who's going to answer the phone? And take the lead, because I do think, and I love the message of your podcast, we need more light to offset that darkness that's going on. And so there are pockets of light everywhere, but we have to look for it. Once again, that look around, you'll find it. And what you're listening to and looking at, you'll attract more of. And so the more light we can sort of bring into the world, the more light we'll see, and the more light we'll send out as well.
Absolutely. Back when my wife Carrie and I were on safari in Kenya, and we went to this one observation landing spot by Lake Nakuru. And in Lake Nakuru, there's a whole pod of hippos out in the water with their babies. And just like bears, you don't get near bears with their babies. Well, with hippos, they're very protective too, and they kill more human beings in Africa than any other animal. Very protective, and they will trample you, bite you, and kill you. So we were out watching these and talking, and we got lost in Bob and Carrie world. We were just talk, and everybody that was with us left, and they told us, you need to be back by 7:00. That's dusk. It's dangerous after that. You need to come back and be back to camp. Well, camp is about 100 yards away. You have to go along this path, and there's big, tall thatch on both sides of the trail, and it's the big, thorny thatch. Well, we see these tiki torches at the end of the trail about a football field away of where our camp is. And we look around and, oh my gosh, everybody's gone. And it's just us. And we kind of enjoy the peace and quiet. And we look out into the water, hippos are gone. Now they're inland, and they're in where we are. And I look at my watch, it's 7:45. We're 45 minutes late, and it's dark. Oh my gosh. So I said, babe, we're in trouble. We are in trouble. And nobody came looking for us either. And that's so sad. So we start walking hand in hand on the trail, and we get onto the trail from the place we were at. And all of a sudden we hear this like horrendous big snort that you could feel. You don't just hear it, you can feel it. And I look at her and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then we hear it again, and we hear this crashing of thatch, like, and I said, run. And we ran. I was holding her hand, and we run as fast as we could towards the light. And kind of a symbolic thing there. And we were running, and I was expecting just out of that thatch, just this hippo hitting us and trampling us and killing us right there. And I actually was starting to think, what if we get killed by hippos out there? What a great story that's going to be for our kids back home when they go to school, like show and tell. Mom and dad got killed by hippos in Africa. They'd be the most popular kids on the planet. But then that just took the humor, you put the humor into it. But we really seriously were endangered. And our guards came running towards us with these automatic machine guns, like these AK-47s or whatever they were, running towards, like, come, yelling in Swahili for us to come to them. And they were running towards us so that they could shoot something that might come right at us. And oh my gosh, we finally passed them, went into camp. They went over there and they stood there waiting. Oh my gosh, everybody's looking at us like, what the crap just happened? And we really realized that day we could have both been killed by these hippos. And it made this fun trip. All of a sudden, it's just the gravity of the whole thing, realized we could have died right here. And what a horrendous thing. I was thinking, what would have happened if one attacked Carrie? How do I protect her? How do I try and get a hippo off her? You know, you poke him in the eyes or what? So it was really a scary story. And we both will never forget that. And we're just grateful, you know, that everything worked out the way it did, but it made us really reflect on life and how fragile it is and how things can turn just like that, from a cool, fun experience to tragedy. And we're really grateful it turned out good.
I think that your experiences, these close calls with death and divine intervention, I think really help people see how we should value this life experience, because it could be over so quickly. So enjoy what we have.
To that point, Liza, I think it's really super important that the listeners understand that you shouldn't be afraid. We cannot go through every day afraid to step off the curb. I mean, gosh, whether we're killed in Africa or I step in front of a UTA bus, it could happen anywhere. Don't be afraid of life. And you know, you just need to be grateful that you have life, you're living life. And my dad used to always say, you know what, you go when your time's up. So if it's not up, it's amazing what you can survive. And when it's up, it could take this, you could choke on a spoonful of water. You can choke on eating peanut butter too fast. It doesn't matter. Don't be afraid. And I think there's too many people that when they hear stories like this would want to just go and stay in their room and not go outside. And please don't do that. You know, that's not what life is all about. You know, just live it and see what happens.
I love your attitude of life. I think if we all had that, well, I think if we all had that type of mentality and mindset, it would be more exciting. And so I do believe if we engage with it in an exciting, we're excited to be here, we chose to come here, this is our big adventure, it could really be helpful for our experience. Fun life you've had, such adventures.
And I'm not done. I hope I don't really have any more near-death experiences. That's for darn sure. But I don't know. I used to think when I had like three, I've had three near-death experiences, you know, I'm good to go. I'm like I'm bulletproof.
Invincible. Yeah.
Invincible. Yeah. And then another one comes and another one comes. I'm like, what the heck? It's crazy. But yeah, I just want to kind of live life with a lot of fun and helping other people without having to go through more experiences myself.
Why do you think that you've had so many where some people have none?
I don't know. God has given me these experiences so that perhaps he knows I can use them in the way he wants me to use them.
So tell my audience where they can find your show. If they want to reach out to you, if they have a story, where can they find you?
If they want to email me, there's just an email address of B as in Bob, bhoward@digrisk.com. Also, if they want to contact you on your podcast, then you can also forward, because we're in the process of building a landing site where people can go, and we're not done with that yet. My show's too new. So if they're interested and they know of anybody, come to you. And if you could be so kind as to forward those on to me, that would be great. And we'll work together on bringing more light.
I love that. I love that. And my website is wondersandmiracles.com. So if you want to reach out to Bob through me, just put that in the note and we'll get them connected. So it's called A Close Call with Death.
And it's on Apple and Spotify and lots of different social media outlets. So I'd say under either Bob Howard or A Close Call with Death. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bob. Anything else that you want to share before we close up today?
You know what? I just want to thank you for taking time with me, because, that's what makes this whole thing successful and touching people's lives. And so thank you so much for the opportunity to be on your show and to spread some more good light.
Well, thank you. And I'm honored to hear your stories. And I'm glad you're still here on the planet, sharing light and that the close calls with death or close calls with miracles are still keeping you here.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you, Liza.
Thank you so much for listening to this miracle story. Please subscribe to my channel if you liked it. You can also find me on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. And remember to notice and celebrate miracles everywhere, because the more miracles we notice, the more miracles happen.